the January 2022 readings at home. I'm Sharon Bakar, and today I will be introducing 4 readers. 3 of the readers are based in Singapore, and 1 of the readers is based in Sarawak. Over the years, when we have held the live event at Segsang Gallery in Bangsa, we've mostly been able to have people who are local to KL or who were staying in KL come to the live event. But one of the good things about making these videos is that we have been able to feature writers who are overseas or come from a little bit further afield. So I think that's extremely special. COVID brought us many bad things, but I think the fact that we're able to be more inclusive in this way is one of the good things that's come out of the pandemic. This month, by the way, is our 17th birthday. Readings has been going for 17 years since it was started by Bernice Chorley at Darling Muse Gallery in Bangsa. So it's been on almost every month since then, which I think is quite an achievement. And that would never have happened without the support of the writing community in KL and the people who have supported us by watching the videos and, of course, for that by attending the live event. So thank you all very much. Our first reader for today is Gwee Li Sui. He has 7 volumes of poetry to date. His other works include Myth of the Stone, Singapore's first long-form graphic novel in English, non-fiction titles on poetry and Singlish, a Myanmar-inspired picture book, and Singlish translations of classics by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, Beatrice Potter, and the Brothers Grimm. A familiar name in Singapore's cultural scene, Gwee has edited several literary anthologies and written and lectured on a range of subjects.
Hello, I'm Gwee Li Sui from Singapore. I hope you've all been keeping well during this period. At least try your best. Thank you for inviting me to do this reading. I hope to be reading poems I don't remember having read publicly before. I think I should be able to manage 3 from my collections of verse. So let's start. First, a ghost poem. Alicia. I lived across a cemetery and played among the grass. An evening drew with it much life. I heard the spirits pass. Leaves were spiraling in the dance. The wind was whimpering perchance. The gravestones were my books by day. For me, a 10-year-old, I read their stories furiously and felt my blood run cold. The night was riding like a horse. The trees were raising their applause. I waited for the moon with joy and held my lips to hum, and soon and faithfully I knew sweet Alicia would come. The sun was fleeing from the dark. The sky was shifting from their mark. The night was still when she appeared. Alicia was a friend. She knew the loneliness of day. At night she held my hand. The wind was simmering its power. The grass was bending to the hour. We ran across the whirling fields and reveled in the shades. We unturned the prince of silence beside the flowers of haze. Darkness was moving, listening. Creatures of the dark were heaving. Below the flames of stars we sat. She read to me her verse and told me figurative tales of magic and of curse. The crows were woken from their sleep. The night was impaling the deep. Alicia led me to the stones. and told each history of men and women buried there in their melancholy. The air was settling on the log. The flies were turning through the fog. She sang to me a cheerful song to help my tears to dry. And when she sang, I knew it was near time to say goodbye. The flowers were dipping in their breaths. Dry leaves were covering their depths. Dinner awaited me at home. She stood where grass was sheared. I waved farewell to Alicia, and then she disappeared. The wind was stirring up again. The ash was summoned by the strain. By day, when I was all alone, I wandered through the grass and sat by sweet Alicia's tomb and read the words of brass. A voice was beckoning sometimes. The clouds were shaping in their minds. Alicia said, I'm life and death. As I had lived, I lie. When will you rise again? I asked in the twinkling of eye. The twigs were circling for a sign. Thoughts were rivaling to a line. The months when I was 12 years old, huge cranes and workers came to excavate the cemetery that did not have a name. Grey dust was covering the wind. The gulls were shrilling as they grinned. The remains of the dead were moved to a columbarium, and a long train tunnel was dug underneath the stratum. The night was stagnant in the cave. The earth was howling for its nave. Often when I take the train that skims beneath the grass, the tunnel is too dark to tell what once this area was. The air is harrowing its awe. The subterranean night is raw. But out of the window, when I gaze through the back abysmal, I see again sweet Alicia smiling in the tunnel. A gust is calling through the traps. The rocks are echoing, perhaps. This poem, written actually some decades ago, was really inspired by my childhood. I did live just across the cemetery, and later on they have to build a MRT station under it, and that was done after digging up the whole cemetery. Right, another poem, maybe a cute one, but it may be offensive to some people. Often I get people sending me their poems and asking me to read them, and really I don't know how to comment on poems by aspiring writers, because you really have to find your own voice, right? You know this, and sometimes some poems I find as a person with my own voice are quite painful to read. So this is, I think, a rather mean poem that I wrote at one point. It's called Dear Aspiring Poet. Fact is, you write bad poems. Don't fault the doldrums because others feel misery too, and their verses are beautiful. Call it professional ill, call it what you will. Be angry with me if anger can help you be the master of a grief. Just don't feed your obese self-belief. Writing on its own isn't magical. What is to make it exceptional, with less rather than more. Surely you heard all this before. If prose can express what hurts with fewer or less showy words, you're already in trouble. Anything resembling a ramble is a bucket hole that leaks. This isn't what poetry seeks. Then again, alas, you're of a different class. You're all hole and no bucket. Your verse throttles me to look at it, and I'm looking. All I see is a vast nothing in need of a tree to be sat under for a very long time while you ponder, who am I? What the hell am I doing to people? Your poetry causes pain. Please don't ask me to read it again, or I shall cry maniacally as though a school bully were putting up my soul. Please keep it all under control, and you stop the hurting now. Don't quote back to me on how the garden of culture needs manure. Sorry, whoever it was, I can't remember now. This poem was written for. Finally, one last poem. Make of it what you will. It is entitled How It Was Meant to Happen, If Only You Knew. That day it would rain and not stop, and the sky would bleed into the mouth of a thirsty evening. In the night, in my sleep, I would talk of dreaded things, and no one would hear me. No one would be around. When the clay feet shattered, when the great earth was done with weeping, when we all resumed without mouths, it would be cold and dark in this forest of the soul. My mind would burn on above your callous fuel. So that's all I have for you. Thank you very much for again allowing me to read. I really do appreciate also hearing more poems from the other poets and readers. Goodbye.
Georgette Tan is a compulsive dabbler in creative arts, known for things she'd rather people forget, and also relying on the same things so that people would remember. A writer and poet with an interest in tarot reading and podcasting, she's self-published 2 poetry chapbooks and recently completed her first novel. She lives in Kuching, Sarawak, and is a freelance writer and editor.
Hello everyone, my name is Georgette, and this is my second time at readings, only made possible by a global pandemic. So today I'll be reading to you from my second chapbook, Every Suicide Note, which, yes, I agree, does sound a little morbid. However, it is a line from a micro poem inside this chapbook, which goes, "Poetry is every suicide note I've ever written, left in the open, pretending to be art." And that was the bonus poem that I'm sharing with you. Here is the main event. Public service announcement. If you're feeling suicidal or depressed and you do not want to call anyone, gather up the slivers of your identity, even if you don't recognize yourself right now. Get a big bottle of water. Cry for that stranger, hate who they have become, how it's come to this, how nobody sees the hurt under the smile, how you don't want to bother anyone with your pain. Hydrate. Sleep it off. Wake up laughing at how public service announcements mean nothing, how all the phone numbers run together when you combine snot, tears, and swollen eyelids. Watch the news scroll up your feed, how easy it is to copy and paste a PSA and go on with your day. Public service announcement. If you're feeling suicidal or depressed, call these numbers. Talk to strangers who don't know you enough to judge you, whose voice may be enough for some, but you are special. You don't just want the pain to stop, you want to stop existing. Even if there are people in your world who are glad you are alive. Can you trust that we see you for who you really are, even when you are gaslighting yourself? I promise that we tell bigger lies to ourselves, bigger than anyone can or will. I promise that this too will pass. It can't get any worse. Things will be okay. Things will always get better, no matter how hopeless your entire world looks right now. And that's it for me. I hope you enjoyed that poem. If you would like to get a copy of my chapbook, you can go to my website at georgettetan.com. And yeah, thanks for having me on readings. Hope you all have a good day.
Next, we have Filipino writer Noelle De Jesus. She was born in Connecticut, grew up in Manila, and is a permanent resident of Singapore. She writes fiction and is the author of 2 collections of short fiction, most recently Cursed and Other Stories, Penguin Random House, Southeast Asia. She has an MFA in creative writing from Bowling Green University in Ohio, and occasionally writes poetry and translates Tagalog literature into English. She's currently at work on a novel.
Hello, my name is Noelle De Jesus, and I'm very happy to take part in Readings at Home on its 17th year. I would like to read a short piece of fiction because I only have 10 minutes. It is the story called Passport, which comes from my first collection, Blood, published by Ethos Books in 2015. Passport. You know nothing. Sadness tastes fierce, like salt on your lips that never goes away. It's sore and dry and tight behind your eyelids because no tears are left. Heartache washes over everything good because those you love cannot know such pleasures as the taste of cherries or the sight of snowflakes tumbling from the sky. I know you would understand. For what have you suffered, really? Nothing. You will fly home perhaps later than you planned. Another one will be issued for a small fee. You will rebook your flight. Nothing. Just a small, fleeting inconvenience. And then you'll take your children to see more sights. Feed them ice cream and waffles and fried chicken. Enjoy the city. You will ride bicycles by the lake and shop at the outlets. Maybe your things will no longer fit in the suitcases you brought. You'll buy another suitcase, or you'll ask me for a cardboard box to ship to your house in Manila. The $150 this service will cost? Nothing. It is so easy to pay. And then you will fly home and forget this, like it never happened. So yes, I am grateful your family came to visit. I am glad you exclaimed during the dinner that I cooked for your family and the family I work for, that your passport needed to be renewed. It was news to me that you are American, just like your cousin, my employer. You can go anywhere in the world and still return home. Me, I have no choice. As I washed the dishes that same night, I prayed that somehow you might have the new passport sent to the house by mail. And then, like magic, like a miracle, it arrived 3 days later in a large brown envelope. My heart was full of trembling as I felt the hard booklet through the stiff paper. So I lied to you. I looked you in the eye and told you nothing had come. The mailbox was empty except for bills. I acted surprised and I sympathized with you as I played with your daughter. And in her eyes, I saw mine. Maybe they had not sent it yet, I said. Or perhaps it is lost in the mail. All that time, it was in my room, beneath my mattress. People will take it, they will change the name, change the photo, and then my daughter can come. Wasn't I able to come here in just the same way? Forgive me, I haven't seen her or my son in 10 years. There is an ocean of difference between you and me. We each live on separate planets that orbit the sun. But you are a mother. You do everything for your children. Me, I left them. I sent all my money back. We do what we need to do. I took it, and I do it again as many times as I must, until my babies are here with me, the way yours are with you. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.
Our fourth and final reader for today is another writer based in Singapore, Anitha Devi Pillai, PhD, who is an applied linguist and teacher educator at the National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. She is best known for her research on the language and the heritage of the Singapore Malayali community. Anitha is an author, translator, and poet. She's published short stories and poems in anthologies, authored and edited 7 books, including From Kerala to Singapore, Voices from the Singapore Malayali Community in 2017, From Estate to Embassy, Memories of an Ambassador, 2019, The Story of Onam, 2020, A View of Stars, Stories of Love, 2020, Tapestry of Colors 1 and 2, 2021, and has translated a Tamil historical novel to English titled Sambawang, a Novel, 2020. She's currently working on a collection of short stories. Of all the genres that she writes in, it's the short story that she considers her favorite. She has an author page if you'd like to know more about her, www.anithadevipillai.com. So check it out. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Anitha Devi Pillai, and I'm here to read to you from a short story titled Voices that I wrote regarding a girl who wants to be a writer and what happens in her writing classrooms. Nine-year-old Sudiksha Menon. I stared at the mango leaf green popsicle in my hand. It was beginning to drip down my fingers to my elbow. I hoped it wouldn't melt away too quickly before I reached my flat. My mother had to be home by this time. Please don't melt, please don't melt, please don't melt, I chanted all the way back to my apartment in Jurong West, lugging my heavy school bag on my tiny shoulders. My mother was exactly where I thought she would be. She was seated at her table in the study, bent over her notes with a red pen in her hands. You see, my mother was a secondary school English teacher at Bunyan Secondary, and it was her usual routine to start reading papers as soon as she got home. For you, I made it in class today, I said as I gingerly handed over the melting popsicle to her. If my mother was amused by the color of the popsicle, she didn't show it. I watched the tip of the popsicle disappear into her mouth. My mother exaggerated every move. She had to be pleased that I had saved her the treat that I made in school for her. But the next second, she grimaced. I wasn't sure if it was the ice or the taste. After a few seconds, my mother took a deep breath and polished off the rest of the popsicle. How did you make this, Sudiksha? I didn't know if I should tell my mother that I had taken her daily breakfast of bitter gourd and ginger juice to school that day to make this popsicle. It wasn't my fault that my mother was on yet another diet. This time, She was in a no sugar diet. So there were no fruits or soft drinks. There were no chocolates or desserts either. There is sugar even in the rice we eat, she said. The fridge was stripped of all the good stuff. But Miss Thomas, my English teacher, did not know that. She had asked us to bring to class a packet of juice or any sweetened drink. We had just read making popsicles in class, and we were going to make popsicles that day. My fear of getting laughed at for bringing bitter gourd and ginger juice to class was unfounded. No one did. Miss Thomas remarked that my fresh apple juice looked a little more green than usual. I didn't see the need to correct her. We laid out newspapers over the long tables in the canteen for the activity. We poured the juices into the molds carefully. There were 6 molds for 6 popsicles, and we had each assigned to one mold. It was my turn. When it was my turn, I accidentally spilled a little bit of my juice into Arsing's coconut with pulp juice. Arsing was very proud of the fact that his popsicle would be the only one with juicy bits in it. He didn't notice what I had done then. I thought it was best not to tell him that he now had coconut with pulp plus bitter gourd and ginger popsicle. Thankfully, when the popsicles were ready 4 hours later, Arsing's popsicle looked rather pretty. He even proudly showed it off to the rest of us. His was the only multicolored popsicle in the class. I didn't wait to find out what had happened when he ate it. I didn't wait to find out what happened when he ate it. I ran home as fast as I could with my popsicle in hand for my mother. I think she loved it, and she stocked up the fridge with fruit juices the next day for me. She said it was a reward for making such a lovely popsicle for her, and now I could make more. She added that fruit juices made better popsicles than vegetable juices. The next day, it was time to write about our experience of making popsicles. Asing, Janani, Fatima, and I worked together to describe our little activity. Asing thought the popsicles tasted horrible. Janani and Fatima disagreed. They quarreled for a bit. I did not say anything. I focused on the task at hand. Miss Thomas told us to write about our experience on a large sheet of mahjong paper that was handed to us. I always volunteered to do the writing. I had the best handwriting and was best at spelling in the group. As the group's resident note taker and writer, I had the responsibility to tidy up their contributions and shape it into something interesting. I liked my role. We read our stories to class, and Arsing was a little sad when everyone disagreed with him about how the popsicles tasted. Maybe your coconut juice with pulp was spoiled. Did you check the expiry date? Asked Miss Thomas, puzzled by the turn of events. Again, I thought it was best not to say anything. The final stage of the writing activity was for us to write individual compositions of 150 words. Miss Thomas had taught us the 3 stages of narrative structure a few weeks ago: the beginning, the conflict, and the resolution. She went through the structure once again. It was time for me to write my composition. I wrote about reading, writing, making popsicles in class, and being asked to bring in the juice. The conflicts were clear. I had 3. The first conflict was that my mother was on yet another diet and there was no sweet juice for my activity. The second conflict was that she was always busy grading papers and I could not trouble her to buy me a packet of juice. The third conflict was that I had poured part of my bitter gourd juice and ginger into my classmates' popsicle. The resolution was the plan that I had devised to resolve the matter. I had poured my mother's morning breakfast juice into my water bottle and brought it to class. And I had helped my classmate to make a good-looking popsicle by sharing some of my juice rather selflessly. Matter resolved. I also explained how my mother enjoyed the best popsicle that I had made for her as she had eaten it rather quickly, and how my classmate Arsing's and how I was my classmate Arsing's secret Santa. You know, the one who helped him with his popsicle project. Having read my work carefully once over, I submitted it to Miss Thomas. But first, I waited until everyone had handed in their papers before I did. It was a little trick I had learned from observing my mother grade papers. When your paper sat on top of the pile of scripts, teachers marked them first. My mother only got tired halfway through the marking. She was always happy when she marked the first script. As luck would have it, Miss Thomas started marking the compositions in class that day. I watched as she picked mine up first. When she came to the last part of the paper, Miss Thomas started chuckling so loudly that she nearly slipped off the chair. Sudiksha, girl, you can sell ice to an Eskimo with your writing. Thank you very much for listening to my reading. And this is from A Tapestry of Colors, a short story from the Tapestry of Colors. I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to meeting you once again. See you, bye.
That's all for this 17th birthday edition of Readings at Home. I'd like to thank all our readers today for sharing their work, and I really hope that you will seek out some of their books and find out more about them. I'd also like to thank Param for putting everything together, as he always does and does so well. I'd like to thank our viewers for watching the video and for supporting us and for being our support for the past 17 years, both in the live events and for the videos. I hope it won't be too long before we can start to think about live events again, because I know I really miss them, and I really miss having a birthday cake that we could share with everyone who comes. Please keep your eyes open for information about next month's readings. We will be back again at the end of February with another great lineup. I would like to wish all my Chinese friends, all the Chinese friends of readings, Happy Chinese New Year, Gong Hei Fa Choi. And everybody else, I hope you will have a good holiday. Thank you all so much.